When the Brexit referendum came about, one of the big talking points from the Leave campaign was the idea that once we left Europe, all of British manufacturing would somehow roar back into life because we'd be able to trade with the rest of the world and it would all be fantastic. You know, British manufacturing has been saved. Meanwhile, of course, you had Patrick Minford, the Brexit economist, the money man, who was, well, wheeled out in one event and then very quickly, shall we say, taken off stage as quickly as possible because he was the one telling the truth about Brexit, of what would happen. He was the one saying that, look, if we do Brexit, it will absolutely destroy the UK manufacturing sector. Not only just that, but it would also destroy the farming sector as well. So you can see very quickly why he was wheeled off stage. But the Leave campaigners and the Brexiteers continued with this lie that the UK manufacturing sector would somehow be revived because of this. And you've only got to go back to David Cameron and George Osborne with that whole idea of the Northern Powerhouse, an actually good idea, just like with leveling up. Again, a good idea in concept with good plans and ideas, but the problem was there was no policy follow through. There was not enough required capital put into these two propositions to actually make them work. Not only that, but the UK government has failed since the Cameron Osborne years to really put forward a comprehensive industrial plan for the UK. And this is why we have today not only the complete decline of the UK manufacturing industry, but as the British Chamber of Commerce has put it very, very bluntly, the government has abandoned the UK manufacturing sector. And it is in a very, very bad way. And if we do not do something soon, we could see the UK manufacturing sector gone completely. And that would be a massive, massive loss because it is not something that you can just recreate overnight. It will take decades to rebuild. So the sooner that we can get a government in that realizes that, like the Labour government, the better it will be for UK jobs and UK workers to have that sector revived properly. So before we go diving into this sort of analysis, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And of course, down below, there is the YouTube thank you button. And of course, the YouTube Pony Club you can join as well. So as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. And of course, on with this. So this comes from The Guardian, the title of Decline of UK Manufacturing Accelerates as the Government Abandons Sector. When the minor ups and downs caused by the extra bank holiday to the Queen's funeral are stripped out of the latest GDP figures, it's clear that the long decline of Britain's industrial base has accelerated. Protected by the government through the coronavirus pandemic this year, factory owners say that ministers have abandoned them to cope with a long recession without even so much as a glance in their direction. The squeeze from the inflated material costs, the shortage of workers that has pushed up wages and declining demand for their products is especially crippling while the government spends its time navel-gazing, they say. As the British Chambers of Commerce makes it clear in its response to the figures of the slowing down of the economy, which shrank by 0.2% in September, there is another factor damaging the outlook for manufacturing and exporters more generally, and that is Brexit. And what have we always said? You cannot have a serious conversation about the UK economy, the UK manufacturing, our GDP, until you actually seriously think and have Brexit included in that conversation. Until you have that, you can't really talk, or at least have an adult conversation about it. So let's get back to it. The Business Lobby Group says that Europe remains a major export destination and that Brexit has introduced barriers to trade that did not exist before 2021. David Bauer, the head of research at the BCC, said that it was mindful of Jeremy Hunt's stated aim of calming the financial markets next week with a robust autumn statement that could be trusted to add up after the recent self-inflicted turmoil. However, he added, businesses need to see a long-term economic plan that invests in people, skills, and infrastructure and rapidly improves our trading relationship with key markets, not least across Europe. All 13 manufacturing subsectors recorded falls in outputs in September, and as a whole, manufacturing fell by 2.3% to the worst recorded performance over 3 months since the 1980s. To give an indication of the poor performance in more recent times, output is no higher than it was in July of 2021. And since then, when most other industrialized countries have been participating in a manufacturing boom. And this is one thing that we've said before. When it comes to trade, all the other countries have taken off, but we haven't. And now, in this sector, doesn't surprise me, all the countries are experiencing a massive boom and we're not. Why? We are entering a Brexit recession. And I think this is one thing we have to make clear. This recession that is coming is being driven by Brexit. Now, it's not entirely responsible, that's for sure. But about 80 or so percent of responsibility for this current recession that we are going into, Brexit is the primary suspect. And I think we have to sort of start pushing that narrative of what's really going on here in the UK. So back to it. So we have a similar and familiar to those look back over the last 70 years, the boom and bust. And it is the custom and practice among manufacturers to greet every recession with a steep down in output. The purchase of new equipment and processes to drive productivity is critical for the sector's survival. Yet business investment has shrank over 0.5% over the quarter. And worryingly, the output of information and communication sector, which covers the IT industry, has slumped by 3.2% month on month in September. This sector survived the pandemic in reasonable health, and to see its decline going into a recessionary levels reveals the anxiety amongst the finance directors and bodes ill for the future. And remember, IT, massive driver in the UK economy. Why? Because we are a service economy. And what is IT? It is a service. And if even they are having big problems in this, when they came out of the pandemic relatively unscathed, and that even they're having problems, a slump of 3.2% month on month in September, that does not bode well. That does not bode well at all for our economy. But back to it. Shops fared even little better, as consumer spending dropped quarter on quarter by 0.5%, and wholesale and retail sectors combined experienced a drop in 2% in output, and many expect worse to come. There may be bright spots in the economy, although mostly rely on the spending power of richer households. Heathrow's announcement said that it was planning a Christmas bonanza of flights, but it depends on the better off customers, many who still have savings left over from the COVID-19 pandemic, splashing the cash. If they buy manufactured products, they will usually be from China. And there is every little prospect that by the end of the year, the cost of Chinese goods will have fallen steeply, driven by lower reduced shipping costs and a less draconian attitude to the COVID-19 outbreaks, keeping factories open and goods flowing more consistently. Inflation will tumble, the Bank of England will cut borrowing costs, and the GDP will begin to recover. But British manufacturing, meanwhile, will continue to lurch downwards, leaving only the most productive to survive. And that is unfortunately the very state we are in. It is shocking news. It really is, because the manufacturing sector is a massive, or what used to be a massive driver and employment, and especially in the North. One of the big reasons why the North has lost like so much of its sort of prestige, and people worry about sort of the decline of the North, is because all the manufacturing jobs were in the North. So, as we always said, back when David Cameron had Northern, the Northern Powerhouse, never happened, never materialized. That's why I said when Boris Johnson was coming through with his, leveling up, leveling up, leveling up. Well, I said I'd wait to see if he actually followed through. And not surprisingly, of course, he did not follow through. Even in the leveling up report, you may remember, the first two chapters were amazing, acknowledging the very facts and problems that British manufacturing and the North even faced in actually trying to level up. And then came the money. And of course, you had the first two chapters saying, yeah, we need this amount of money to be able to sort of, make leveling up work. You get to the money part and it'd be like, well, here's a couple of pounds. See what you can do with that. So we are in a very, very bad position. And it just goes to show you really the sheer amount of incompetence the Tory government has really had in trying to manage our economy. And the fact that they cannot look beyond London as being the main economic driver for the UK. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, we'll see you all next time.